Welcome to this explainer on the ultimate Philippine social studies masterclass. You know, social studies really isn't just about memorizing a bunch of random dates or dusty facts. It's actually the vibrant, scientific study of humans. It's about our behavior, our intricate interactions, and our environment. It's literally the lens we use to truly understand who we are as a people and how our society actually functions from the ground up. Let's get right into it.
Here's our roadmap for today. 1. Defining the social sciences. 2. Society, culture, and institutions. 3. Civics and Philippine government. 4. Basic principles of economics. 5. Philippine history and presidents. And finally, number 6, education for global peace.
Starting off with part 1, defining the social sciences. Let's look at the distinct lenses we use to understand the world. So, anthropology. This is the fundamental study of humans. It examines basically all aspects of human life, our culture, our origins, and how we adapt. It's the science that asks, how did we come to be? For example, anthropology beautifully explains why different regions in the Philippines developed completely different indigenous traditions based purely on their geography. Coastal communities built completely different belief systems, tools, and social norms compared to high-altitude mountain communities. It's all about our quest to understand that incredible diversity of worldviews across the globe. Now, while anthropology looks at our origins and broader culture, sociology zooms in on the nuts and bolts of our daily relationships. It's the scientific study of group life and social interaction. It asks questions like, how is a person's worldview shaped simply by growing up in a tight-knit, extended Filipino family in the province versus, say, a small nuclear family in a fast-paced city? Sociology examines how larger social structures and institutions, like your class, your family, your community, or systems of power, directly affect the fabric of society that we live in every single day.
Then we have economics. This is the discipline that reveals how human societies successfully sustain themselves financially and materially. It's all about the proper allocation and efficient use of available resources for the maximum satisfaction of human wants. To put that into perspective, economics is the system at play when local communities have to decide whether to use their limited municipal funds to build a brand new public school or a new wet market. It covers the entire life cycle of how goods are produced, distributed, exchanged, and ultimately consumed.
And history. History is just so much more than a timeline on a whiteboard. It's the totality of all known past events that brought our civilization to exactly where it is today. It involves describing, narrating, and analyzing human activities in the past, including the monumental rise and fall of entire nations. Crucially, history provides the essential why behind all those societal structures we examine in the other branches of social science. It's really the study of the great changes that have forged the political and social conditions of the human race.
Moving on to part 2, society, culture, and institutions. Let's look at the basic building blocks of life.
Think of these 4 primary social institutions as the vital pillars supporting our daily lives. First, you're born into a family, which is the smallest unit responsible for biologically and socially producing and reproducing persons. Then, you're shaped by education, focusing on the transmission of knowledge, teaching the basic 3 R's, and developing higher-order thinking skills. Throughout your life, you're often guided by the shared meaning found in religion, which involves belief in a higher being and deeply rooted rituals. And finally, the whole shebang is organized by the government, the institution that's entrusted with making and enforcing the rules of society.
It's incredibly fascinating to compare the distinct pre-colonial social hierarchies of our ancestors. Just imagine for a second where you would fit into a pre-Spanish barangay. If you lived in Luzon, you might belong to the Maguino, the highest ruling class, or maybe the Maharlika, the warrior class who didn't pay taxes but actively protected the barangay. Below them were the Tamawa, the freemen, and finally the Alapin. But over in the Visayas, the structure was slightly different. The highest class was the Datu, followed by the Tamawa, or free people, and a lowest class was the Oripon, who could actually be bought and sold. It provides such an incredible glimpse into our early social stratification.
Okay, part 3, civics and Philippine government. These are the rules that govern us. The supreme rules of the land have evolved through several distinct historical regimes, really mapping out the nation's shifting political identity. Starting way back with the 1899 Malolos Constitution, the country established its first republic. That framework then shifted entirely to the 1935 Constitution, adapted during the American Commonwealth period. During the incredible hardships of World War II, the nation operated under the 1943 Constitution during the Japanese occupation. Decades later, the 1973 Constitution marked a dramatic shift during the martial law era, changing the government over to a parliamentary system. And finally, we arrive at the 1987 Constitution, drafted specifically to reestablish and legally protect a restored democracy. Let's jump to Part 4, Basic Principles of Economics. What makes a functioning economy tick? Let's explore the absolute bedrock of market economics, the law of supply and demand. Imagine a sudden mango shortage. Well, that's step 1. The price skyrockets because they're rare. Moving to step 2, because mangoes are now incredibly expensive, consumer demand understandably drops. However, local farmers see those high prices and scramble to supply more mangoes to catch that sweet profit. This leads directly to step 3. Soon, the market is completely flooded with mangoes, bringing the price right back down. And finally, step 4. As the price drops to affordable levels again, consumer demand goes back up and the quantity supplied goes down as farmers stop overproducing. It's this constant, beautifully balancing dance. But as we know, sometimes that balance gets completely disrupted by inflation. That's a general rise in the level of prices of goods and services over a period of time. In our sources, there's a highly relatable Filipino idiom used to describe the harsh reality of dealing with inflation. Kahig kanang kahig. It basically paints the picture of a chicken endlessly scratching at the dirt. It means you're working incredibly hard, constantly scratching out a living, but because the prices of basic goods keep rising around you, you still struggle to save anything. It perfectly connects a high-level macroeconomic concept right down to the daily lived Filipino experience. Moving to Part 5, Philippine History and Presidents, the Key Milestones and Leaders. We really cannot talk about Philippine history without highlighting the ultimate catalyst for independence. The Katipunan, founded by Andres Bonifacio in 1892, wasn't just a rebel army. It was actually built on 3 highly distinct foundations. It had a core political objective, which was to physically separate from Spain. It had a strict moral objective, focused on teaching good manners, hygiene, and aggressively attacking religious fanaticism. And it had a civic objective to defend the poor and the oppressed. It wasn't just an army, it was a comprehensive social movement. Building on that monumental fight for independence, the presidency shifted dramatically over the century, reflecting the nation's complex evolution. Beginning in 1899 with Emilio Aguinaldo, the Philippines established the very first republic. Jumping ahead to 1935, Manuel L. Quezon became the first Filipino president of the Commonwealth, transitioning toward full self-governance. By 1965, Ferdinand Marcos took office, later ruling under martial law, which is an era defined by significant constitutional changes and centralized control. Then, in 1986, following the People Power Revolution at EDSA, Corazon Aquino assumed the presidency, establishing a government that served as the basis for the current democratic constitution. Throughout all these historical shifts, words were honestly just as powerful as actions. Take this incredible insight from our sources, the True Decalogue, a political tract written by Apolinario Mambini, which became the Bible of the Filipino rebels. Mabini's writing injected massive historical weight into the revolution. It proved that the fight for Philippine independence had a profound, brilliant intellectual foundation. It wasn't just about taking up arms, right? It was about philosophically defining what it really meant to be a truly free, moral, and self-governed citizen. And finally, Part 6, Education for Global Peace, Building a More Tolerant World. So why do we study all of this? Why study anthropology, economics, civics, and history? Well, we do it for peace education. The vital objectives here include promoting nonviolent conflict resolution and fostering deep self-respect, alongside a genuine respect for others. It aims to develop robust, critical thinking and nurture a true global and ecological concern. Ultimately, understanding our social sciences is about creating responsible global citizens, people who clearly grasp the interconnectedness of our cultural and economic systems and who are equipped to recognize and actually address social injustice. To wrap up our journey today, I want to leave you with a provocative question directly inspired by everything we've explored. As a global citizen, now deeply aware of our shared history, our complex social structures, and our economic realities, how will you act to make the world a more sustainable and peaceful place? Think about it for a second. The social sciences aren't just found in dusty textbooks. They are the living, breathing blueprint of our lives. Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me, and keep learning.